Welcome into the show. Thanks for tuning in on this Thursday, January the 29th. Welcome into the show. Thanks for watching as always. We really appreciate it. It is 8 a.m. on the East Coast, 5 a.m. out west, and all time zones in between and around the world. Speaking of around the world, it has been quite some time since we've seen kind of a global reaction to someone's passing, someone's death, and we are seeing that this week. We talked about it on Monday's show. The impact, the legacy. And you're now starting to see some of the other victims of the tragedy getting recognized and honored, and it was just such a sad, tragic event, and all the young ladies and their families and the coaches, the pilot, all of them, just a sad, tragic event that happened on Sunday, and we're seeing this just pop up everywhere, all over the world, honoring and recognizing Kobe. Tributes before basketball matches are continuing the trend. Last night, Coach K, after Duke's victory over Pitt, had some comments about his relationship with Kobe. And his ability to coach him on 3 different Olympic teams, and just that whole kind of USA basketball experience, and getting to really, really know Kobe. There had always been kind of this rumor that had Kobe going to college, he was going to go play for Coach K at Duke. That is before the USA basketball stuff ever came about with Coach K, and so you see the impact of a player who just had a profound impact on the game, and then obviously the abrupt, sudden, unexpected, tragic death. I think it's kind of really impacted the emotion. Everything's just raw. No one had any inkling or ability to process. It was not like a cancer or an illness, and people were, thinking maybe he won't pass away. This was completely unexpected. And just to hear these comments, to watch things play out in the soccer world, his favorite team of all, AC Milan, honored him before their match yesterday. You see this impact. He was an ambassador for not just basketball and the game of basketball. That was obviously his first love in sports, but he loved soccer, and big supporter. And so you're just seeing that continue to play out, and continue to be a thing in the mind's eye of everyone. You've got political talk shows covering Kobe Bryant and his death and his impact. That it is a big deal when everywhere you turn, you can't avoid it. And so it is one of those things that I don't think we will forget anytime soon. When we talk about the Federation, and we talk about different, things that are going well versus things that aren't going well. One of the things that we have talked about quite often is the fact that the Federation is a dysfunctional system and structure. And what I mean by that is there is a way to create a connected infrastructure and system. FIFA lays this out. Every country in the world operates this way, but the United States Soccer Federation has chosen to thumb its nose at proper systems and governance and have tried to do it their own way. And part of that way has been to just let people do whatever they want, as long as it doesn't get in the way of what they care about. And that has been, for the last couple of decades, the viability, profitability of Major League Soccer. So all the rules, the things that they've rolled out, even within the DA system recently, the changes of, even though there were DAs that were not MLS DAs that were more successful in the field, producing better players, getting results. When the DA got restructured, Major League Soccer got preferential treatment as first-tier teams, even though several of these teams were not first-tier in their own region. Other teams, non-MLS Development Academy teams, were having success, beating them regularly. They got relegated to Tier 2 status for no reason other than the fact that their DA was not an MLS DA. This is the kind of garbage that is going on in the Federation, and it happens all the time. The decision after decision after decision, the Federation is so intoxicated with its own agenda that it is very difficult for them to see clearly. And they keep beating their head against the wall. They keep making decisions that are unwise, decisions that are not fair and equitable, decisions that do not mean equal opportunity and access for all. They continue to pick winners and losers. And out of that, whenever you have dysfunction, whenever you have things that are not operating on the up and up, you open yourself up for trouble. Under Carlos Cordero, who is supposed to come in as this, Goldman Sachs executive, I have the business experience, I can get these things running in the right direction. Under Carlos Cordero, we have exploded in legal troubles. Exploded. It seems like every time we turn around, there is another lawsuit taking place somewhere within the Federation. Now, they may not all be directly with the Federation. They may not be such and such suing U.S. Soccer, although there are many, many, many that are concerning directly U.S. Soccer. The system in place is creating dysfunction everywhere, where the lawsuits have gone beyond parties just suing the Federation. Now you've got parties suing other parties within the Federation. And all of this stems from the dysfunction of the system and structure of U.S. Soccer, i.e., poor leadership at the top. Plain and simple. We are where we are because of the leaders in charge. We have been trying desperately for decades to prop up MLS, to subsidize Major League Soccer, to give them preferential treatment, sweetheart deals, pick winners and losers, falling in favor of or going in favor of MLS time and time again. We have chosen to, as a federation, to ignore our fiduciary duties when it comes to providing opportunity, access, resources to all of our members as a federation. We have created a system of gatekeepers where you got to know the right people to get in or get something from the federation. And that usually means you need those 3 letters attached to you somewhere, Major League Soccer or MLS. You got to have that attached to you somewhere in order to get something from the federation. So the problem here is that you have all of these members within the federation operating in a dysfunctional system, a siloed system, a disconnected system, a system that is dysfunctional on so many levels and in so many ways. And it has created an environment where soccer is secondary, sometimes even further down the list than that. Yesterday, I spoke with a source who said that they're hearing that there is a possible new lawsuit forthcoming. This is the rumor. And it's concerning the Girls Development Academy versus the Boys Development Academy. And part of that may include heart rate and GPS monitors. So the boys DA got free heart rate monitors, GPS monitors. The girls did not. There's also rumors concerning Major League Soccer when it comes to funding the Boys Development Academy, but charging for the Girls Development Academy to subsidize the Boys Development Academy. Within U.S. Soccer, U.S. Club and NorCal Premier has already apparently gotten sued for attempting to not let new clubs join. All of this stems, like that last one, all of this stems from dysfunction. If you had a merit-based system, joining a league would be based on on-field performance. We wouldn't have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different leagues sanctioned by 5 different sanctioning organizations, all operating somewhere around the same level, using marketing and marketing slogans and sales pitches to try to claim who's better, who's higher, who's more elite, who's this, who's that. And we wouldn't have a gatekeeper system of who gets to get into those leagues and who doesn't. You would have a connected system of leagues. They'd be sanctioned by the federation, or they'd be sanctioned by a member of the federation, but in line and in conjunction with a connected system of leagues, so that a local, community team could do well, earn its way into a higher status, higher level of play, and that continues so on and so forth. Instead, we have this mess where it's just everything everywhere. And as a result, we get more and more lawsuits, more and more trouble, more and more issues. The only way to fix this is better leadership. Plain and simple. And that starts at the top. That starts at the board level. It starts with the president, the vice president. We've got to have better leadership. And if those in charge currently don't begin to change their ways and realize that they're making mistakes in regards to how the federation is run, we are spending millions of dollars that should be going into the grassroots on lawsuits because they refuse to do the right thing. if they're not going to get their act together, then someone else needs to step in and get this thing on the right path. Speaking of getting on the right path, if you have not already, I encourage you to today get on the right path, do the right thing, go to ducticbrand.com. And when you do place an order, you'll get 10% off of your order. You'll use promo code DW Show to get 10% off of that order. You might need a coaching journal. Wednesday morning, January the 29th. Thanks for being here. We have developmental things. I first want to have a guest on the show for the first time. Could you just give us a little bit of background on you and kind of where, when you, maybe why you fell in love with the game of soccer?
Yeah, of course. So I'm from England originally. I live in Colorado now. But I think like most people in England, I played the game all my life. I didn't play it to a particularly high level, to be honest. I just played at a local Sunday league team, as they call it in England. And I played. It was just. I just played for one of my friend's dads, formed a team when we were just really young, and I ended up playing for that team up until the age of about 16. And then I actually stopped playing when I was about 16 for some reason. Just life sort of just got in the way a little bit. And then I ended up just going back playing again when I was 18. And then I just continued playing for the same team, and then I ended up playing for some local, lower-level, semi-professional teams that was just near to me in England in the local sort of regional league up until I was about 22. And then I just stopped playing the game then because I was away from it, and I was just like, I need to try and get back into sports. And obviously, I'm not sure if you're aware of them. Some people probably are, and whoever listens to this, but they're just like a British company that sends coaches abroad over to America.
Right.
And I was just like, okay, this sort of just adds up. So I can coach. I can maybe start coaching, and then maybe pursue a couple of years in my life. That was just the intentions at the time, at least, of just coaching and traveling abroad, because I've always had a fascination with America as well, to be quite honest. So everything sort of just clicked in that regard. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So what part of England did you grow up in?
On a town called Wednesbury. I'm not sure if you've heard of that or not. It's in the West Midlands. It's sort of in between Birmingham and Wolverhampton. And my local club team that I support was West Bromwich Albion. I've got clubs that are more local to me. Walsall FC is that's probably the closest one, actually. But that's like a mile from Bourne, but would.
So how painful has it been when they got?
You say they've always been teetering on that edge, so they've always been up, and then they feel like them coming down. So, Jaldi.
Next year. Yeah, so to get into what we wanted to bring you on to talk about is, coaching, youth development, kind of your journey, how to, that kind of, marriage of ideas and experience and things that you're seeing, things that you've experienced. You come over to the United States with challenge.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so that was my first gig in America.
So that was kind of your first gig, your intro into the U.S. And here, what made you want to stick around, and what kind of experience was that first, time in coaching? Had you done any coaching in England before you came, or was this kind of like your first kind of, I'm going to just dive head first and go for it?
Yeah, so I didn't do any coaching when I was younger. I felt a bit England. I know I was 24, so I was still young. But like, there's a lot of people who in the coaching world seem to start coaching like even a lot younger than that. So I almost felt a bit like behind the curve a little bit. But so I had done no coaching. The team coach, he said to me, "Do you want to go on?" Experience whatsoever, and I felt so. It was a pretty humbling experience, actually, because I felt overwhelmed almost, and I felt like I was on this course, and level 2 is really not that. It's not that high of a course, but the tutors were obviously very experienced, and I was watching these put on like demonstration sessions and stuff, and I was just like, oh my word, I've played a game all my life that I thought. I didn't play to a particularly high level, but I thought I was pretty decent at, and I thought like I knew a lot about it, but I have no clue whatsoever about this game. So that was, and then the way it works on the course, so you do like a first weekend, and then you have like a period, like a developmental period in between, where you then go and do sessions with like a club team to bit of practice, and then you go back for a second weekend to do like a final assessment. So I did have a bit of coaching in between that with like a local group of U12s, and then I did my final assessment, and then I managed to pass. Actually, fortunately, I then fed up coaching. I reached out to a local semi-professional club called Rushall Olympic, which is in Walsall, which is not too far from me. It was. I didn't really know what to expect with Challenger Sports. It wasn't the type of coaching that I particularly like. They're more entertainers / I'm going to just say babysitters to an extent. So it sort of wasn't what I had in mind, but it was still a good experience.
So after that, yeah, absolutely. After that, to and do it as this is something I want to make a bigger part of my life on a day-to-day basis and do something in the United States?
That's a good question. And first of all, let me just finish talking about the Challenger a little bit. What I was referring to was really like the summer camps. But like when I was working with Challenger Sports, like my first year, I was just I worked in Denver, like in Newark, Ohio. For anyone out there, I don't know if they're aware of that town. Earlier, I worked. When I first signed up with Challenger Sports, it was going to be like I'm 24. I'm still in my like 20s. I'm young. I just want to go on experience and travel, coach soccer at the same time, and just have a good time. I think that's a lot of like people with Challenger Sports. That's a lot of their mentality. But then I started coaching more, and with Challenger, you do get to work with teams somewhat in the fall and the spring. And I was just like, man, I absolutely love this. I absolutely love this, and I think. And I started getting, I think I started getting pretty good at it. But I was just like, this is something that I would love to try and do full time. And obviously I didn't know much about the whole sort of soccer setup, youth soccer setup in the United States. So when I was working with a club in Newark, Ohio, I sort of got to grips with how it works, and then I started looking at the structure of clubs, and they have like all these different, like there's so many players in some of these clubs, and I was like, you know what, there's actually, I didn't realise there were people like really making a living out of it, and I was like, okay, this is something that I could do long term. I enjoy more than playing in a lot of ways. And I was like, and there's actually like an opportunity, I feel, in the United States for me to then get within a club and get with some kind of full-time role. And that's what sort of sparked my sort of journey, so to speak, within the United States. And then I think about it pretty much all the time, to be quite honest with you. So I've been pretty much thinking about how I can just become a better coach and get to a sort of place where I want to get to.
So in terms of philosophy, environment, etc., training, development for players, in your eye, what influences do you utilize or look to as inspirations for how you like to develop players, style of play, philosophy of play, principles of play, coaching, coach speak here for a second. What kind of shapes the way you want your team set up to play, and also shapes how you structure your environments to develop players to be able to play in those types of systems and play?
So that's a good question. I'm just trying to think. Like there's just so many ways you can go with this, and there's just so many influences out there, especially on Twitter. That was one of the reasons that I joined Twitter I first joined Twitter just as a way of like, someone recommended it to me, and I was just a way of sharing and just learning new ideas, and then you end up down like so many rabbit holes, so many influences that. But so my first, like, I've always been like, as I mentioned, when I was in Newark, Ohio, I was like, I said to myself, I'm gonna try and do this. I'm really going to I was giving 110% anyway, because it's, like I say, it's just something that you enjoy so much, and I think about it so much. But then I just said to myself, I'm going to make a real concerted effort to try and get good at this. So I started to devise like a philosophy, and when in like, that was probably 2014 now, and essentially it just begun with just as I have got more experience. Well, I now coach a group of U9s and U10s, and that's my sort of niche age, I would say. If I had to give an age of where I think I have most of an impact, or where I'm a bit of a specialist, so to speak, then I think that age is probably the age. But I just feel like you've got to. So I've got like a document that there's a word within the coaching realm, I'm sure you're aware of it, like a game model. So I've got like an idea of how I want the kids to play, but so I've designed that with, like, imagine that I was coaching like a group of U18s who are really good, like, and I can really get them to play a certain way. So I've designed that with like a really older group of kids in mind. And then what I've done then, I've developed they're not all my ideas, but I've tried to then narrow the game down, for example, and how I would then put them on a pathway to get them from U9 all the way to how good are they with a ball, individual possession. Are they able to master the ball? Because one thing that I did notice as I've been coaching throughout the years, a lot of times kids they're almost wrestling with the ball when it comes to them. A lot of times it comes to them, and I think a lot of them want to just get rid of it. It's like a hot potato. So I think first of all it starts with developing a love and a real enjoyment and value in having the ball, and developing like a real connection with the ball. And then you sort of get them on a journey and start making things a bit more context, game realistic, those kinds of things. I'll let you jump in, Daniel.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like the just the and then I break that down, preparing them for that stage down the road. Obviously, there's seasons and years and steps in between, but it is definitely using the beginning with the and obviously the famed La Masia Academy of Barcelona, in studying their principles of play, their pathway, their development structure. You would watch a player that would come in, and I noticed this a lot under Pep, not quite as much under Enrique, because the shift began at the board level, and then obviously Enrique himself a little bit away from encouraging and utilizing La Masia players, and then under Valverde, ultimately it was non-existent. But Setien has gone back to that well of Cruyff and Pep in embracing La Masia and the products of La Masia. But what you would see under Pep and God rest his soul, Tito Villanova, that took over for him as assistant when Pep left, was this full embrace of La Masia graduates that would come into the team, and then you would see a player come from the outside, and even as talented as a Suarez or a Neymar, they didn't at first have the patterns. They didn't have the principles of play. They were obviously amazing players, but those characteristics. What do you try to utilize as a coach to create those kinds of players?
Okay. First of all, I'd say it just going back to that little conversation then about having a game model. It just made sense to me to have some kind of, like, a game model's the technical term, but just having some kind of idea of how you want those players to play. Because I made the mistake, and I'm sure many coaches have made this same mistake, and a lot of them, and a lot probably still do. Like, when you first start coaching, you go on these coaching courses, and other coaching courses, I don't think tend to take this kind of viewpoint. They do more of like a week by week kind of thing. So say week 1 you'll do, like, I don't know, dribbling. Then the next week it's passing. Then the next week it's number 3, it's receiving. Next week it's crossing and finish. And I used to do that when I first started coaching, and it just didn't work. You can almost do too much. So you can almost, by the end of, like, especially in the UK, you want to sort of the messages that you want to get across. So you have exercises that I feel cover many topics in once, and then you just have sort of key messages as how you want to play the game. And I also think a lot of, and like you said about mentioned about, like, players coming into, like, Barcelona first team from the Masia who just instantly, like, click within a system. Like, I think what people need to understand as well is, like, those kids they've been in that system years, and it's a process. Like, you need to take a real sort of long-term view and have an idea of what you want to achieve with a group of kids, or how you want to play the game. And be really patient with the process, because, and what I see a lot with, like, training models as well, is that they base sort of they base a lot of their training on what happened at the weekend. So, like, with a group of U9s, for example, a coach will be like, oh, they didn't score many goals, for example, so we're doing finishing this week. Oh, they conceded lots of goals, so we're doing defending this week. And then, to my point about not having, like, a quality over quantity, then all of a sudden, at the end of the season, you end up, they haven't got anywhere, because there's not been, like, a long-term plan. They've literally done, like, a session, they've done one session or not much happens up in the winter in soccer. But so when I used to go back in England, I carried out a course called the Youth Award module, and they introduce you to the play, practice, made model, but they just call it a whole part whole. And but then US Soccer introduced their sort of new grassroots initiative. So I do use their model in terms of play, practice, play. So I do a lot of games. I do a ton of game related stuff. Now, that can be a bit misconstrued. Like, one of the things on Twitter at the moment is, like, let the game be the teacher, kids only play the game. I don't think, like, when I say, like, I do a lot of games, it doesn't have to mean they're only playing the game. I just do a lot of stuff that revolves around the use of opposition, and interference is a good word that was brought up on one of the courses. But I just like to, I don't do that much sort of individual, like, isolated work. But I'll introduce kids to, like, some various turns, or, like, some just a little comfortable with a ball. But a lot of it is just 1v1 exercises. So this is for, like, an individual possession, but with just in like, different situations. So, like, the defenders coming at them from different angles. A lot of times you'll see a 1v1 practice, and it's just like the typical one is just like a 1v1 to a pug goal, for example, where the defender is stay on the ball under pressure to maybe wait for a passing option to become available, or to maybe create space for themselves to then pass. So I do a lot of, like, 1v1 exercises, but then I also do a lot of them so there's decisions related to, okay, I'm protecting the ball from the defender. Okay, now I've got a passing option, and then I'm going to pass it off to him, and then I'm going to receive the ball again, and then I'm going to have to stay on the ball again. So I do a lot of 1v1 exercises, but then I try to relate them to add more numbers gradually, to then make it a bit more sort of game related, and it just puts the exercise in context a bit more. Does that answer your question, Daniel?
Absolutely. So when you are working with trying to get across? Are they getting it by staying consistent, or or are you still working through them, kind of grasping the ideas? Have they really?
The thing with the play practice play model is I like the model because I just like. Practice play. As the kids arrive to practice, my game sort of related section at the start might be just 1v1s. I might just literally have a row of, like, say if I've got 10 kids coming to practice, I'll have a row of 5 like mini fields, and I'll just say, as the lads come in, I'll be like, hey, get your start. I'll give them an introduction and whatever, and then I'll give them a high five and all that kind of stuff, and they'll be like, okay, get a partner and just start playing. 1v1, just dribble over the end line to score. So all of a sudden, that play section is 1v1 straight away. So and kids arrive to practice early. So that just, before it had many touches on the ball in a situation against the defender, they're getting comfortable on the ball, and it takes time as well, because it's a process, so you have to be patient with it. But then it just gives you a chance to then embed the ideas of what you're trying to get across as soon as the kids arrive. And then then we'll go into the practice part of the session. But I tend to do more than one sort of practice part. Like, you could almost call it like a practice play. And sometimes I just do one. It just depends. I just use it as a framework. And then that might be some individual ball mastery. Just one person, one kid, one ball, just doing some various turns, ball a lot. Because I think the reality of, like, a lot of the players that we deal with as coaches, they don't play the game as much as what we would like as coaches away from practice. I've got like a U9s. Do you know what I mean? I'm not that concerned about that. The most important thing is that you continue to keep trying, and we'll get better on the ball. And there also needs to be a clear link on a Saturday, because it's all right doing these things. This is what I say to the players. Okay, we're gonna do a lot of stuff this season where we're gonna try and get good on the ball. I want you to show me what you've got on the ball. But then Saturday comes around, and I'm like, lads, what you've been doing this week in training has been absolutely fantastic. Just because it's a game now doesn't mean you should continue to do those things, because sometimes I think there's too much of not enough of a link between training and practice. Like, I think a lot of coaches, as soon as the game kicks in, they don't want kids trying to protect the ball, trying to stand the ball, because if they do make a mistake in a game and the other team concedes, and I mean, if the other team scores a goal, then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh my word, what's going on? But so the messaging needs to be consistent, especially with the younger ones. Even if they make mistakes in the game, they need to be able to stay on the ball. And I've had a lot of these discussions in the past with parents who have maybe been a bit like, oh, get rid of the ball. And I'm like, just let them play the game. Okay, just sit back, enjoy the game.
And
I think Messi is the best ever to play the game.
Sure,
I really do think that, but I just had a very soft spot.
Amazing. I have a friend of mine in Atlanta that he believes not only is Ronaldinho his favorite player, he believes he is the best player of all time. And his metrics aren't necessarily all the stats. I mean, obviously that goes to Messi, but he's like he was just a mad genius on the ball, different level. And I get his point of view. I disagree that Ronaldinho is the best ever, but I do think he's an incredible player. Favorite coach?
Favorite coach. That's a good question. I am going to say, in the professional game, or could it be like within the youth game?
It could be anywhere.
Anywhere. I'm going to... Oh, my word, that's a good question. I'm going to say Pep Guardiola at the professional level, because he's just transformed the game, isn't he? What he's done for the game, he's transformed the way people try to play the game. Like the type of stuff that we're talking about now in terms of keeping possession and stuff, it all, I know I'd say, oh man, it's a good question. I do like teams that try to keep the ball, but I feel like I like people who are really good on the ball. So I think you've probably got that now with me saying about individual possession and stuff. But I like players who are really good on the ball. So I like teams that keep the ball, but then I like teams that have got really exciting players within it.
So if I could attempt to summarize your favorite style of play, it would be beautiful collective and individual play, right? In possession. It's not just keeping the ball, but doing it in a very beautiful way, an organized way, but also that flair and that art that Ronaldinho was so famous for.
I think so. I think I like soccer. Like you can soccer's creative in many ways, and I think like passing the ball and keeping the ball as like a team is very creative. But I do like individuals who can just all of a sudden just do something, just make something happen. I do like I like Ronaldinho, for example. Like when he got the ball, if you were sitting back in your seat, all of a sudden you're to the edge of your seat, and you're like, oh, what's going to happen now? I do like those kind of players.
Yeah, me too.
And I do try to encourage that in the lads that I coach. But yeah, so I think you've summarised it well. A team, but individuals within it, there to help, Daniel. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, they can connect with me, and I will help anyone as much as I can. So thank you, Daniel.
At charitywater.org. We'll be right back after this.
No one, no man, no woman, no child should ever have to drink green water with bugs, with algae, with disease in it. Bad water and a lack of toilets kills more people in the world. We know how to bring clean drinking water right now to every single person on earth. And when you can bring water into communities, it truly transforms them. It changes everything. Or you could know that you'd made a difference. You could know that you had truly impacted the life of a family, of a community, of a region. There was either clean water or there wasn't. We believe in a world where every single person has clean and safe water.
You can catch me on Instagram or at Twitter at Daniel Workman. If I can get my brain to work here at the end of the show. Thanks for watching as always. Really do appreciate Ricky coming on. Goodbye.